Alright, so here's today's harebrained scheme. So behind my bar, I wanted to put a barn beam up to put some things on, so I was going to throw alcohol on there, but I thought it'd be cool to actually add LED effects to it. So I know you could do a strip across the top and put glass on it, but I wanted it a little more hidden. So got the barn beam, got it cut down to the size, and what we're going to do is take 4 of these LED RGBs here. So the controller we bought actually does RGB. And these are 5mm LED diodes. They're already pre-wired with the resistor already in them. So the controller I have is red, green, blue plus a white. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 4 of these, either zip tie them or glue them together or something like that. We're going to drill holes downward, pluck it in there, and then drill a hole back, make it meet up, and pull the wire out, and run them all at length on the back, and plug them in and hook them up to the controller. So what we did was, this was 78. I wanted my lights to start 16 inches in, so 78 minus the 16 brought me to 46. I divided that by the number of spaces we needed to take up, which was 8, and it brought me to 5.75. So what we're going to do is, these are going to be staggered. So we're going to do one forward, one back. So we're going to drill a hole down, 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 through. I'm actually going to use Cat 5 cable, because that's already got 4 pair in it. So I'm going to run them all right into here, solder them up, pull them through, and then and see what happens. So that was just the initial of what we're planning on doing, and we'll do some more steps along the way so we can follow along. Alright, so I wanted to do some pre-work on my LEDs. So the hard part with trying to get these LEDs to try to, I mean, you want them to all be together, but they have a little lip at the bottom, so they don't want to sit together cleanly. So I was trying to figure out a way to get them to make so they point forward. So the only way I figured out to do it was to actually push them into something. And since I couldn't find anything online to do it, I just took a round plastic piece that I had lying around the house, drilled 4 holes in it, and what I'm actually going to do is put them in there. But I wanted to make sure I put them in there in the right order. So actually I marked all my wires so I knew what color they were. So blue has 1 stripe, and green has 2, and white has 3, and my red is just red. So I wanted to make sure I put them in the right order. So what I'm going to do is go clockwise and do RGB and then white. So I'm going to pop this in here, and then what I'm going to do is add some hot glue to it, and then I'm going to pull it down in there. And let that set up for a second, and then when the glue dries it should hold it in there. So I'm going to go around in a circle clockwise, and I'm going to do RGB and then white, and then I'll probably add some more hot glue to the bottom of it, but at least that way I know it's facing straight up, because then when I go to drill the hole in the top of the barn beam, I can just do a 1-inch hole, slide that right in there, hot glue it, and my wires are going to run out the side. So there's some pre-work you can do for your LEDs. So I got them all in there now, and then what I did was, there's a little bit of junk on there I'll have to clean off afterwards, after it dries. I flipped it over and I kind of pulled these all outwards, so that way they would lean towards the middle, because you want everything kind of shooting up to the middle, not to the outsides. And then I hot glue gun that. So you might not have little plastic things like I have lying around the house, but I know at craft stores they do have like 1-inch little wood discs that you could drill holes through and do the same thing. But this is the only thing I can come up with to make it so it's a solid unit I could plop in there rather than trying to tape them or hot glue gun them again. So there we go. It's ready to be plopped in after I wire it up to my, so I'm going to take these and I'm going to Cat 5E, or not Cat 5E, Cat 5 I'm against here. I'm going to hook them all up to that wire and then thread it through.
Okay, so here's the the wiring Mad Lab. So the way these controllers work are they supply voltage over a common line, and then they control the lights using the negative. So what we're going to do is we're going to take my Cat 5 cable that's got 4 pair, and I am going to use the striped ones and combine them all to give them power. So on my little LED array here I built, we're going to use red is going to have all the power, and then the blacks I'm gonna have to separate out and put into, you know, the individual solid colors. So green's gonna be green, orange is gonna be my red, blue's gonna be blue, and then I'm gonna do my brown, it's gonna be white. So just gonna follow RGB in that way, and then I'm gonna solder these all together, and that way it'll hold, and then we're gonna shrink tube them over top to make sure they stay in place. So I figured I'd show you one of these, trying to show it close up, that I wired up all the reds together, and they're going to the stripes, and then I individually wired each one of these, but they all have like an inch gap in between. That way when I put the tubing over them, they will not touch each other and make the other ones light up when I don't want them to. So after I do this and shrink wrap them, I then test it out to make sure they're all working individually, and then I know that one is good to go.
Alright, so we're at day 2 now of our fun. So now I'm going to try to line up where I actually want to put the holes for my LED arrays that I just built. So a bottle is about 3 inches wide, and I want these to be inch back from the front and an inch off the back. So 1.5 inches plus another inch gives me 2.5. So I set my tape measure back 2.5 inches, and then I'm going to go down the length here. So I got 78-inch long beam. I want them 16 inches off the sides. So that's minus 32, gives me 46. I have 8 gaps because I have 9 bottles, so there's 8 gaps in between. So 46 divided by 8 gives me 5.75. So starting at 16 is going to be my first one. And then I'm going to jump over 2, because then I'm going to do 27, and then I'm going to have the 39 and the 50.5, and then the 62. And then for my front, I gotta then measure out, and then I'm gonna be the 21 and the 33 and the 44, and they're gonna be there. So we're gonna have one that's gonna be around here, and my other one is gonna be 21 3/4, so around there. So that's gonna be, and then they're gonna stagger back and forth, back and forth. So I just gotta mark these, and then I'm gonna drill down and move on to the next piece of this puzzle. Alright, so I ended up actually drilling holes to mark them because pencil and pen was not showing up too well. So I just did little teeny pilot holes of where they're going to be. So now that I have that done, the next fun part, besides my wiring fun, is going to be how to get this going here with the channel. So that's my end piece over there. That's a straight cut, and that's actually going to bump up against the end of another wall in a corner. So what I'm going to have to do is cut a channel in here. I'm probably going to go down like an inch, take my circular saw and rip like a 1/2 inch hole, or rip through here, and then do another one like 1/4 inch down, and then pop the 2 pieces out, so I'll have a nice good divot. I mean, I guess you could probably use a router, but sometimes routers like to wobble all over the place unless you got a fixed router that you can put this thing on and run it down the whole length with guards on it, but that's not going to work. So probably going to rip that down there, that way I have a big channel, because my wires are going to come out, there's going to be one coming out here, one coming out here, and they're all going to have to follow together, going all the way down the end and out on that end down there, which will then go into the wall, and then into my controller. So probably going to cut that out 1 inch down, and then probably 2 inches down is actually where I'm going to put my hidden fasteners. So to drill a hole like here, here, and there, wherever my 16 on centers are. So 3 of them to hold the whole beam up. So that's gonna be our next fun. Okay, so here's real quick what I did. I set my depth on my thing to be probably like 3/4, and then I put my guard in here. I put it a little bit under 1 inch, and then I had to do like 1 inch and over 1 inch to get away 3 cuts in here. So that way I can pretty much just take a screwdriver, and it should pop these pieces, and then you can pop them out, and then we'll have a channel that we can stick our wires in. You just gotta be careful, you don't want to push too hard on this to make this pop out, because it is old. It's an old barn beam. So after I get this out, I'll show you what it looks like. Actually, it might be easier to come in here from the side and pop them out that way. Maybe not. Alright, so here you see we have it pretty much pulled out. The one problem I have here, there's a knot here. So what I'm probably going to have to do is just take the circular saw and go in here and cut that out again, because I don't want to push on this too hard, because I'll probably pop that off, because like I said, this wood is old. But now we have a channel to run all our wires in that'll go all the way through and then come out and go into the wall here. Because this is our top, this is our back. And then we can, after this, we're going to drill down, whatever this is, probably 2 inches, maybe probably 2.5, to get a little bit lower on our other spots. And then we're going to drill in with probably 3/8 going in to meet up, and then we're going to try to then fish our wires through and then bring them all this way. Fun, fun. So I got that out and got my channel here. I ended up just taking my circular saw and kind of going down the slot and going back and forth to kind of wedge it out. And just FYI, like I did here, sometimes there's some nails in here. I missed one. This one must have broke off. And yeah, get ready to, you could probably ruin a blade real quick by hitting a nail. That one's probably pretty much toast. But at least our channel's there. Now we can start our top drilling and back drilling. Alright, so we're going to do a test hole here. This is a piece I cut off the original. So here's one of my completed LED arrays, we'll call them. And so I got my paddle bit accessory kit here by Revlon. So 1 inch, not big enough. 1 1/8 looks like that is spot on, so we'll use that. So I just want to figure out my depth before I go and mess up my real wood. So I'm gonna so that's down about 1/2 inch. And I'm gonna use this, my long one here. Go right in that center hole. And let's see how well this goes down in there and sits. Because I want it to be in there. I don't want it to be too visible. So I want it to plop down in there. Alright. Alright, so now what I'm learning is on my downward one, I need a bigger bit because this stuff is all hitting. So I need to make a pretty big borehole after that one to make it so it'll fit down in there. So let's see. That again. Trial and error, because we are shooting from the hip on building this thing. I'm gonna get in there. One of our ribs did not make it down. Oh, there it is. Alright, let's see. So, that's a little bit down there, but I'm probably going to need to make my hole a little bit deeper than that. So now, sure you get all the sawdust out first, because I want it to recess at least a 1/4 inch down, and that's not low enough. So what I'm going to do is, next time when I drill one of these, instead of it being, wherever we're down now, we're about 3/4 of an inch down now. I'm probably going to go down an inch. But redoing paddle bit holes is always fun after you drill out the middle. So that might work a little better. Some stuff down there. Oh, now another piece of wood just went down in there. There, now I have a nice hole. So let's try this again. Twisting it helps too, get them down in there. Alright, there we go. So, now you can see, it's hard to tell, but, so that's down there underneath. So now our bottle will sit on there. So now I know to use my paddle bit, I'm going to go down an inch. So what I'm probably going to do with my paddle bits is, I'm going to put a piece of tape an inch down right across here. That way when it spins and it hits the tape that'll be flanging off here, I'll know I'm down deep enough. So now technically what we're going to do for the next piece of this is, if this was the back, I'm going to take this and drill it all the way through to meet that bottom hole. And then we got to try to get the wire to come out the back. More fun stuff. Alright, so now we're going to drill a hole. So I did a test one here, and it's in there wired through. So now I'm going to do this next one here. And what I had done was I took this piece of tape so I would know how far I was going to go down. When I did on that one, I went down like that 3/4 inch, and then I drilled through with a thicker, well actually a thinner on this to go down deeper so I could get the wires in there to push through. But what I think what I'm going to do this time is just go down like another 1/4 inch off of this. So we're going to buzz that hole through there, and then we're going to use a different bit to go through the back, and then we're going to feed it through. And when I go down further, the wires on this are going to make it try to pop up, so you can push it down as far as you want to get the desired height. So I'm just going to go a little bit deeper so that way I can push it down as far as I want to go. So we're going to drill this. Alright, so now we're down a little bit over an inch probably. And then we're gonna pump this up. Take this bit, which is long enough to go all the way down to there, but we just, for this one, we just need to go down to here. So we're just gonna line it up. Put it back down. Make sure we clean it out so I should get the wire through without any issues. And we're going to wire this through. So it'll cooperate. Let me push them all together. push that down in there to be the height we want. I just want it to be below flush. So that should stay. So now if I put our bottle on there, get our battery, because you always want to test it along the way because you don't want to have to go take it apart later. So there's the green, and our red, and our white, and our blue. That works. And to come back here, you can see the channel. All these wires are gonna sit in that we drilled earlier. So we're just gonna push those, and then they're all gonna go down there, all the way out, and it's gonna go out that corner wall, and we'll wire it up. So now we just gotta repeat this process like 8 more times, 7 more times.
All right, so we got them all in. We drilled them all in, got them all pulled through. And now what we're going to do is get these all to lie in our slot, and then probably use some electrical tie-down nails to hold them in there so they stay shut. Then after we get them in there where we want, then I'm probably going to come back, push these down to the height I want, hit them with a little glue gun to keep them where they're at. So that'll be our next fun. All right, so we put it in there, and every once in a while I use these, I guess I call them, they're cable staples. And these are the 9/16 by 1¼ inch type. So they fit in the slot. We anchored them in there with all the wires along the way. And then we did test them out to see if they all did work. And so I think we're good to go. So the next thing I'm gonna do here real quick is push these down a little bit, get them a little bit right below the surface, and then hot glue them to make sure they stay. And we got one, yep, see, tested them out. Throw the bottle on there. And that's what it'll look like, but that's daytime. It'll look a lot better when it's done. All right. All right, so we're waiting for our glue gun to heat up here. So our next step, we were gonna use these hangers, these hidden fasteners, but they're only 5 inches. And if I have to use 4 of them, I'm sure it would hold it up, but it just seems sketchy that it doesn't go across far enough. So I'm just gonna use some good old trusty rebar. So what I'm gonna do is drill a hole into my 2x4 and then ram this in there and put some construction adhesive on it to hold it in there. So there'll be 4 of these going across, and then they're gonna go out like 7 inches. So I'm gonna cut these to be probably 10 inches to go 3 inches into my 2x4 in the wall. And I think that should hold it up pretty well. So that'll be our next step. So here we're just gonna show you how we did the last one. So they're obviously a little bit off level. So all I'm doing is coming in here, putting some hot glue, both sides on the opposite sides of each other, and then holding it as close as level as I can get, and then letting it set up for a minute. Usually takes like 30 seconds for it to set up. As you can see, we got all the other ones in. So now the next thing we got to do is drill our holes to put our rebar in the wall, and then drill the holes in the board to put it in there and slide it on, and then wire it all up. Alright, so that's now glued in place. So now they're all glued in place. Some of the heights are a little bit different, but should still work the same. Alright. Alright, so here we are where I'm going to put the actual shelf. So I think what I'm going to do is try to have it maybe a little bit above my eye level. So 33-ish or something like that. I might actually stone this in with like a lick 'em stick 'em type thing. So I'm probably going to try to keep this to be the bottom of it to be an even increment. That way maybe if it'll fit in there properly without a gap. Definitely have to move this. Now what I need to do is take my stud finder, find the exact location of the very first stud so I can measure that off, and then I gotta find dead center on there, so I'm gonna go back and forth a whole bunch of times to find the center. And then I'm actually gonna find these also to make sure I know where they are, not just go 16 on center, because you never know, one of them could be off a little bit, because I gotta be dead center when I put that rebar in there. So I'm gonna find center, level it all out, drill in 3 inches, put it in there, caulk it, but that's what I need to do. This out of the way. I have to bore a hole in here because this is where it's going to butt up, because I want to make sure this thing is pretty much spot on. If it's a 1/4 inch off the wall over here, it's not that big of a deal, but I'd rather have it butting right up against the wall because I want it to butt from here, and then it should end up a little bit out here, and then my lighting should be in the center here. So I'm going to find all my studs where I'm going to drill into for my rebar and get that leveled up, and then figure that out and translate that over to the back side of the actual beam, and then drill holes for that so we can hopefully slide it right on there. Alright, so now I found my studs roughly. 1, 2, this one I think is a double, and that's a single. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a drill bit, and since it's all going to be covered, this is going to be my, I'm going to bore my hole. So I'm going to take a little drill bit and kind of go yet until I find the total edge. And then that way I know, since it's a 2x4, which is 1.5 inches, so then I can just measure in to the exact middle and drill my hole for my rebar. So that's my next fun. So as you can see, I made a bunch of little bore marks up and down until I found the actual true edge. I hit. You can feel it deflecting when I hit that one, so then I knew that was the edge. So then I'm just measuring in 3/4 inch, and that's where I'm gonna drill a thinner pilot hole first, because a thicker bit will go and it might go astray. So that way, if I use a smaller bit, I can actually make sure I'm going in perfectly level, and then go back and use the bigger bit afterwards. So got them all ready. Now I'm just gonna pre-drill and then drill. So now I thought my DeWalt drill had a level on it, but it doesn't. So my little trick was to take this little line level and see where that is level at, and it goes right up to the double line. And then if I put it here, it does about the same thing. So I'm going to tape that on there and then use that as my knowing it's level when I drill my hole. Alright, so we got our holes drilled, and we already put one in, so I'm just going to show you what I actually did to do it. So we took our rebar and we put a piece of tape at the 3.5 inch mark, and what I'm going to do is take my liquid nails and give like a half a trigger squeeze to gunk it up pretty good, because we want it to spill out all over the place. And then I'm going to take this and hammer it until I come up to the blue. Get that off before it gets everywhere. You gotta make sure you get the excess off here, because you don't want that hardening up, because that'll make it so you can't recess your beam. So, I think that should be good. And I can use my little teeny level, put it on there, and it's hard to tell, but this one, oh, it's going to come up a little bit, so I'm going to see if I can force it up over the glue will then keep it there. Looks pretty good. I mean, it's going to be close enough that it's going to keep it on there, especially with 4 of them. And we're just going to continue down the line doing the same exact thing. And after at night, that should set up and make it so it's totally in there, and it shouldn't pull in or out, and it shouldn't try to go up and down because all the cavity should be filled up with the construction adhesive. Alright, so I brought the beam down here, and actually I just threw it up on top of my rebar just to kind of see if the rebar and how it's sitting on there is level, and it's pretty spot on. So technically it's going to be about an inch lower after I pop it on there. So now the one thing I got to do is drill through this wall so those cables have somewhere to go out. So let me get this off. So I'm going to have to measure how far down my cut is. So it's about, I think it was 1.5 inches off center. So I'm going to have to figure out where I'm going to put my holes in this, then measure up, and then I'm going to buzz a hole through here so I can get it in, on, through the cables, and then push it on, and then we should be good to go. So my next step is going to be measuring off these points to the 1/16 of an inch to make sure I'm spot on with those, so I can just slide it right on there, and it's probably going to take a rubber mallet to bang it on there. So we're going to drill some holes, drill that out, and then try to slide this baby on. So I'm not sure how well you can see this, but so what I decided was from the bottom I'm going to do 1.25 inches is where I'm going to drill the hole. So I'm going to have 1.25 inches of the beam below, and the whole beam is a little bit over 3. It waves on the top, so it's give or take 3. And so then marking this as my bottom of my beam, it was like 1 5/8 inches up to a little over 2.5 is where my cable slice is. So I'm going to cut out a hole here, and I'll probably extend it over to here. That way I can pop it on here, have the cables already going in there, and then push, pull, and then slide the whole thing on. So I gotta buzz that hole, and then I'm gonna start drilling my holes into my beam. So as I was about to do this, I remembered I have to do the same trick I did last time. I have to make sure the beam is level, and then I'm gonna mount my little level on here again, and I'm gonna pre-drill. That way it's a lot easier to make it level. But I'm actually have to go get bigger drill bits to go in these 7 inches I need to be able to go in. But I definitely got to make sure I'm drilling level again. That way it's level. So make sure you're drilling level before you make these holes. Measure everything at least 3 times, which is what I'm going to do before I actually drill anything. And double check it, because if you screw it up, you don't want to have this thing off a little bit or up and down. So measure, and make sure it's level. So some measuring fun. So a lot of your tape measures will give a little bit of movement on the end. So what I did was I held it where it was, and then I measured them off. And what I did was actually I dictated to Siri on my phone what the measurements were. That way I didn't have to try to write them down, and I could keep it going all along. And then mine, it's flipped over, so I actually had to measure from this end and start recording. So I just took my triangle square and kind of went along and made a line where they all are. And I'm going to go back and measure these again and double check this again, because I only want to do this once. And then I'll be able to lie it down and start drilling. So kind of made a little mistake here now that I put it down here. Actually I went through and I used a little teeny bit to to get exactly where I wanted to start at along all these. And really, you don't want to level this way, you want to level this way. So actually I did make sure it was level this way, because that way it doesn't really matter because you already got the thing. So we're going to hopefully pay attention to our level here and try to drill straight into this thing, both directions. I should see where 7 inches is. Didn't put tape on that way. Mark that real quick. That's where I gotta get to. Alright, now that we did that, we can use this bit to go our 7 inches off that. And we can mark that real quick. Around there. Yep. Battery's dead. So we'll get a new battery, and then we'll continue to do the rest of these. Alright, moment of truth. It's St. Patty's Day. I went to lunch. So what I did was I popped this up here on top. I threaded my cables through my hole that I bored over here in the wall. And now I'm going to try to take it down and push it on. I'm not sure how this is going to go. This could be interesting, especially by myself. Oh. I might need to stand up here so I can see. Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely going to take some, probably smacks with a dead blow hammer. Let's see how, 4 3/4, 4 1/2. Yeah. Probably going to take a beating. deaf. It moves a little bit, but rebar can bend a little. Pretty level that way. And very level that way. So, next step, we're going to put some bottles up and wire up our controller. So, stay tuned for the wiring. Alright, it's all in. I tested a bunch of them out. The only problem, there was a little gap over here, but I think that's because my wall's not perfectly straight. But everything's in, everything's stubbed through. I actually had to pull back more of the sheathing so I could get access to at least 8 inches of wire, because there was no way I was going to be able to separate these all out. So pretty much all of the striped wires are just going to go together. I'm going to put them into one thicker wire and put that into the controller. But then I got to separate out all the blue, the orange, the green, and those all got to go together as one wire going into the controller. So what I did, going from right to left, going top to bottom, is I put the wires in order 1 through 9, so that way at least I knew which wire went with which light in case I ever had a problem in the future. So now I'm gonna wire all that up and then plug it into controller and see how it goes. Okay, very close. We got our control box on there. So what we did back here was I bundled all the stripe ones, which were power, bundled those all together, zip tied them. You'd actually use a actual ground wire so I could pop the red out the front, and then red goes into the back of the panel box, that 86 by 86 European gang box that you had to order. I put all the browns together, which are white, all the orange, all the blue, all the, you know, the red, bundled them all together, and then just used one wire coming out because 24 gauge wire can easily handle all those LEDs in one wire. And then I just bundled them through another Cat 5e, came in, came out again, and put them right into the controller. So now, to get the controller in there nice and flush, I actually pushed up something against the drywall to make it so it would be held in place. And then I hot glued gun it into place so it would stay where it's supposed to. That way I knew it was going to be nice and flush, because the way this thing mounts up here is perfectly flush. So I think what I'm actually going to do is pull that back off again and then paint it. And after we get it all in place, we'll show you what it does. Okay, so we got our panel over there hooked up on the side. My daughters are playing with it, and here we have it on super jumping mode, but you can see it definitely lights up the bottles. Change the mode real quick. So it looks pretty cool, and it stays up there. It doesn't really move much, and I'm as shocked as you are that it went together and didn't fall apart. Cool. Alright, this concludes our LED barn beam for alcohol.